The Snowman's Secret. It was a cold, silent winter night in the little village of Frostwood. The streets were buried under layers of snow, and smoke curled lazily out of chimneys. Children had spent the day building snowmen and sledding down hills, but as the sun set, a quiet calm fell over the village. Everyone was tucked inside their warm homes, except for Emma. Emma, an 11-year-old with a curious mind, couldn't sleep. She loved winter nights, but something about this one felt different. The moon was unusually bright, casting a silvery glow over the snow-covered ground. From her bedroom window, she spotted the snowman she and her brother Sam had built earlier. It looked ordinary at first. Coal eyes, a carrot nose, and a scarf borrowed from their father. But then, Emma noticed something strange. The snowman's scarf was no longer tied around its neck. It was flapping in the wind, as if someone or something had moved it. Maybe it's just the wind, Emma whispered to herself, but her heart told her otherwise. Quietly, she put on her coat, boots, and gloves and sneaked out of the house, careful not to wake her parents or Sam. The moment she stepped outside, the cold air bit her cheeks and the snow crunched under her boots. She walked toward the snowman, her breath visible in the moonlight. As she got closer, the scarf stopped moving. It hung perfectly still. Emma stood there, staring at the snowman, when she noticed something even stranger. Its coal eyes seemed to be glowing faintly, as though they were alive. "Hello?" Emma said, her voice trembling. She felt silly talking to a snowman, but the glow in its eyes flickered, almost like a response. Before Emma could decide what to do, the snowman's mouth, made of small pebbles, moved. "Thank you for giving me life," it said in a deep, gravelly voice. Emma stumbled backward, her heart racing. "You can talk?" "Yes," the snowman replied, "but only on the coldest winter nights when the moon is full." "You've awakened me, Emma." "How do you know my name?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know all the children who build me. Each winter I wait in silence, hoping someone brave enough will come to me, and tonight that someone is you." Emma's fear began to fade, replaced by curiosity. "Why do you wait? What do you want?" The snowman sighed, releasing a puff of frosty air. "Long ago, I was a guardian of this village. My name was Alaric, and I protected Frostwood from the darkness that lurks beyond the mountains. But one fateful winter, I was cursed by a shadowy figure who envied the peace of this village. He turned me into snow and bound me to this form. Now I can only wake when the moon is full, and only a pure-hearted child can help me break the curse." Emma's eyes widened. "How can I help?" The snowman's glowing eyes brightened. "There is a key hidden in the forest beyond the village. It is buried beneath the oldest pine tree, and it can unlock the curse that binds me. But the forest is dangerous, especially at night. You must decide whether you are willing to take the risk." Emma hesitated. The forest was dark and full of strange sounds. Her parents had always warned her not to go there alone. But the thought of helping Alaric filled her with a sense of purpose. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. The snowman nodded. "Be quick, for the moon will not stay full forever." Emma turned and began her journey toward the forest. The icy wind howled around her, and the snow glittered like diamonds under the moonlight. As she entered the forest, the tall trees seemed to close in around her, their branches forming eerie shapes in the darkness. She followed the snowman's instructions, searching for the oldest pine tree. The forest was eerily quiet, except for the crunch of her boots and the occasional hoot of an owl. Suddenly, she heard a low growl. Her heart pounded as she turned to see glowing yellow eyes staring at her from the shadows. A wolf stepped into the moonlight, its fur silver and its teeth bared. Emma froze, remembering her father's advice, Never run from a predator. It will only chase you. Summoning her courage, she slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of bread she had brought for a snack. She tossed it toward the wolf, hoping it would be enough to distract it. To her relief, the wolf sniffed the bread, grabbed it, and disappeared into the trees. Finally, Emma reached the oldest pine tree. Its trunk was massive, and its branches stretched high into the sky. Beneath it, she saw a patch of disturbed snow. She dropped to her knees and began digging with her hands, the cold biting into her skin. After what felt like an eternity, her fingers brushed against something hard. She pulled it out, a small, ornate key that shimmered in the moonlight. Clutching the key, Emma ran back to the village, her heart racing with excitement. The snowman was waiting for her, his glowing eyes brighter than ever. "You found it," he exclaimed. Emma placed the key in a hidden slot on the snowman's chest. The moment she turned it, a blinding light surrounded him. The snow began to melt, revealing a tall, regal man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Thank you, Emma," Alaric said, his voice warm and human. "You have broken the curse." The village awoke the next morning to find a new legend carved into their history, a tale of bravery, magic, and a young girl who dared to venture into the unknown. As for Emma, she never forgot the snowman's secret, and every winter, she looked at the moonlit snow with a knowing smile.
The silent snowfall. It was the quietest winter night that Lily had ever experienced. The small town of Whitefield was covered in a blanket of snow, with not a single sound breaking the stillness. The usual sounds of bustling streets and the hum of cars were completely absent. In fact, it felt as if the entire world was sleeping, leaving Lily feeling both peaceful and oddly unsettled. Lily had moved to Whitefield with her parents just a few weeks ago. Her father had been transferred to a new job, and the family had found themselves in this small, sleepy town far from the noise of the city. It was beautiful, but the nights here felt lonelier than she could have imagined. She missed her old friends, the sounds of city traffic, and even the busy stores on the corner. But what disturbed her the most was the way the snow fell here. It wasn't like snow she had seen before. Every night, the snowfall was perfect. Large, soft flakes drifting down silently and covering the ground in an immaculate white layer. It was serene, yes, but it was also eerily quiet. Lily never heard a single crunch beneath her feet, even when she walked in the deep snow. It was as if the snow itself absorbed all sound. It was almost unnatural, and for some reason, it made her feel as though something was off. That particular night, Lily lay in bed staring out her window at the snowfall, feeling a sense of unease crawl up her spine. She had been hearing strange things, faint whispers in the wind, shadows moving in her peripheral vision, but whenever she looked, there was never anyone there. The town was always silent, save for the snowflakes falling. But tonight was different. The whispers seemed closer, almost as if they were calling her name. "Lily? Lily?" The whisper came again, soft and airy, yet it was unmistakable. Startled, she sat up in bed. Was it just the wind? She wasn't sure, but the thought of the cold, empty streets beckoning her out of her warm room filled her with both curiosity and fear. Lily was known to be brave, so despite her growing apprehension, she decided to investigate. She bundled up in her coat, scarf, and gloves and tiptoed downstairs. The house was silent, except for the soft creak of the floorboards beneath her feet. She slipped out into the night, the snow crunching under her boots as she stepped outside. The moon was bright, and the sky seemed to shimmer with the reflection of the untouched snow. The world was completely still, not a single sound to be heard except for her own breath in the cold air. but that eerie whispering voice was still there, faint but persistent. It seemed to be coming from the old town square, just beyond the tall, ancient trees that bordered the village. Lily hesitated, but followed the pull of the voice, her feet guided by an invisible force. As she walked deeper into the snow-covered streets, she noticed something strange. The snow in the town square was disturbed, not by footsteps, but by strange patterns. Circular shapes, spirals, symbols she had never seen before. "Who's there?" she called, her voice echoing in the silence, but no answer came. The whispers were louder now, almost like they were surrounding her, though she couldn't pinpoint where they were coming from. She stepped into the center of the square, where the ancient stone fountain stood. It hadn't run in years, but there was something about it tonight that felt different. The snow around it had been disturbed, as if someone had been there recently. A large, dark shape lay partially covered in the snow near the base of the fountain. Her heart raced as she knelt to investigate. Under the snow, she uncovered an old, weathered book. Its leather cover was cracked and faded, but the pages inside were surprisingly well preserved. The book seemed ancient, its pages yellowed with age. It was unlike anything Lily had ever seen. She carefully opened the book to the first page, The Silent Snowfall, a tale of the forgotten town. The words were written in an elegant, flowing script. As she read, the story unfolded before her eyes. The book told of a curse that had been placed upon Whitefield centuries ago. A curse that kept the town in perpetual winter, where no one could leave and no one could hear a sound. It was said that every few generations, a child would be chosen to break the curse, but only if they could uncover the secret hidden in the snowfall itself. Lily's mind raced. Was she the one? Was she the chosen one meant to break the curse? Suddenly, she felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. She spun around in terror, but no one was there. Just the snow, falling softly, without a sound. The voice came again, clearer now. "Lily, Lily, you are the one." The ground beneath her feet shifted, and she realized the symbols in the snow were not random. They formed a pattern that led to the center of the town square. Without thinking, she followed the trail, her feet moving as if guided by some unseen force. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices now singing in a language she couldn't understand, but their tone was welcoming. At the heart of the square, beneath the old fountain, Lily found a hidden door. It was nearly invisible beneath the snow, but the symbols she had uncovered seemed to glow faintly as she stood before it. She reached down, pressing her hand to the frozen surface, and with a sudden crack, the door slowly opened. Inside, a glowing crystal stood on a pedestal. Its light bathed the room in a soft, ethereal glow, and the whispers ceased. For the first time, Lily felt at peace. She stepped forward, placing her hand on the crystal, and in that moment, the curse was broken. The town of Whitefield slowly began to change. The snow stopped falling, the air grew warmer, and the once silent town filled with sounds, laughter, conversation, and music. The curse that had bound the town for so long was finally lifted. Lily returned home that night, the whispers fading with each step. The town was no longer eerie, and she would never forget the night the snow fell in silence. A night that would change her life forever.
The Frozen Timekeeper. The village of Frostmere was unlike any other. Tucked away in a snowy valley, it was surrounded by towering mountains that seemed to pierce the sky. Frostmere had a peculiar legend whispered among the villagers during long, cold nights. The tale of the Frozen Timekeeper. The story went that deep in the heart of the mountains lay an ancient clock tower, frozen in time. The clock tower, they said, was the reason winter never truly ended in Frostmere. Time itself was caught in an endless loop, and only the bravest could set it free. Most people dismissed the tale as mere folklore, but there was one who believed it with all her heart. Mira, a 12-year-old girl with a thirst for adventure. Mira had grown up listening to her grandmother's stories about the frozen timekeeper. She would sit by the fire, wide-eyed, as her grandmother described the clock tower's towering icicles, the frost-covered gears, and the mysterious glow that came from within. One fateful winter night, as the wind howled and snow blanketed the village, Mira made up her mind. She couldn't bear another endless winter. She packed a satchel with warm clothes, a lantern, and a small loaf of bread, and set off toward the mountains. The journey was treacherous. The snow was knee-deep, and the path was steep and winding. The trees whispered secrets as the wind rushed through their branches. Mira felt as if the forest was alive, watching her every step. But she pressed on, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. Only the pure of heart can face the timekeeper. Hours later, Mira reached a clearing. There, standing against the backdrop of the towering mountains, was the clock tower. It was more magnificent than she had imagined. Its spire stretched into the sky, encrusted with glittering ice. The enormous clock face was frozen at exactly midnight, its hands immobile beneath layers of frost. A faint, eerie light pulsed from within, casting a blue glow onto the surrounding snow. As Mira approached, the air grew colder. Her breath hung in the air like a cloud, and the silence was absolute. The massive door of the clock tower stood slightly ajar, as if it had been waiting for her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed it open and stepped inside. The interior of the clock tower was a labyrinth of frozen gears, chains, and pendulums. Icicles hung from every surface, glinting in the pale light. At the center of the room was a pedestal, and atop it rested a small, intricate key made entirely of ice. The key shimmered as if alive, and Mira felt an inexplicable pull toward it. But as she reached for the key, a voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep, ancient, and resonated like the chime of a great bell. "Who dares disturb the timekeeper?" Mira froze, her hand hovering above the key. From the shadows emerged a figure, a tall, cloaked being made entirely of frost and ice. Its face was a mask of frozen shards, its eyes glowing with an icy blue light. This was the timekeeper. "I've come to free the village," Mira said, her voice trembling but determined. "Winter has lasted too long, and Frostmere needs the seasons to change." The timekeeper studied her silently. "Do you know what you ask, child? The cycle of time was halted for a reason. The world beyond these mountains is filled with chaos and destruction. Here, time is safe, unchanging, eternal." "But life isn't meant to stay the same," Mira replied. "It's meant to move forward. Even if it's hard, even if it's uncertain, we can't live in a frozen moment forever." The timekeeper tilted its head, as if considering her words. "You speak with wisdom beyond your years. Very well, Mira. If you wish to restart time, you must prove your resolve." The room began to shake as the timekeeper raised its hand. The frozen gears around the chamber began to turn, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Ice shattered and the sound of grinding metal filled the air. The pedestal holding the key began to sink into the ground, replaced by a massive, glowing hourglass. Its sands were frozen, suspended mid-flow. "To restart the cycle," the timekeeper said, "you must turn the hourglass. But beware. Once you do, you cannot undo it. Time will move forward, and so will its consequences." Mira stepped forward, her heart pounding. She placed her hands on the icy surface of the hourglass. It was freezing to the touch, but she held on. With all her strength, she pushed, and the hourglass began to turn. The frozen sands inside started to shift, flowing smoothly for the first time in centuries. As the final grain of sand fell, a brilliant light filled the clock tower. The frost melted, the gears roared to life, and the clock hands began to move. Midnight passed, and for the first time in Frostmere's history, the bells of the clock tower rang out. Mira stumbled outside to find the world transformed. The snow was still there, but the air felt different, lighter, warmer. The first rays of dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. The timekeeper appeared beside her, its icy form beginning to melt. "You have done well, Mira. The cycle has been restored. The village will remember your courage." And with that, the timekeeper dissolved into a flurry of snowflakes, carried away by the wind. Mira returned to Frostmere as a hero, her story passed down for generations. The seasons came and went as they were meant to, but every winter, when the clock tower's bells rang out, the villagers remembered the girl who had dared to restart time.
The whispers beneath the lake. Deep in the heart of the Whispering Pines forest lay a mysterious, glassy lake that locals called Silent Mirror. The lake was so still it perfectly reflected the towering pines and the ever-changing sky above. But no one swam in its waters, no birds drank from its surface, and no animals dared to approach its shores. The villagers whispered about strange happenings, voices carried on the wind, ripples with no source, and shadows that moved beneath the surface. Elena, a young artist who had recently moved to the nearby town, found herself irresistibly drawn to the lake. She had heard the warnings from the locals, stories of people disappearing, never to return, but her curiosity burned brighter than her fear. She had always been captivated by mysteries, and the lake seemed to call to her, almost as if it held a secret waiting to be uncovered. One misty evening, Elena packed her sketchbook, a lantern, and a thermos of tea and made her way to the lake. The air was unnaturally cold for late autumn, and the forest was eerily silent. When she reached the shore, the lake looked even more otherworldly than she had imagined. The water was impossibly dark, yet it shimmered as though lit from within. Elena set up her stool near the edge and began to sketch. As her pencil moved across the page, she noticed subtle movements in the water, small ripples that expanded and faded without a sound. She stopped drawing and leaned closer. That's when she heard it, a whisper. At first, it was faint, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. But as she strained to listen, the sound grew clearer. It wasn't one voice, but many, speaking in hushed, unintelligible tones. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. "Elena?" Her name, spoken in a soft, melodic voice, echoed across the still water. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The voice wasn't menacing, but it wasn't entirely welcoming either. It was curious, as if testing her. "Elena? Come closer." Against her better judgment, she stepped to the very edge of the lake. The reflection of the sky and trees shimmered, and beneath it she saw movement, dark, shadowy shapes swirling just beneath the surface. She knelt, peering closer, and saw faces, dozens of them. They looked human, but their eyes glowed faintly, and their expressions were a mix of sorrow and longing. Before she could pull away, a hand shot up from the water, a pale, slender hand with webbed fingers. It didn't grab her, but hovered in the air, as if offering something. In its palm was a small, glowing pearl that pulsed with light. "Take it," the voices urged. "Learn the truth." Elena hesitated, her heart pounding. The pearl was mesmerizing, its glow soothing yet strange. Against all logic, she reached out and took it. The moment her fingers touched the pearl, the world around her changed. The forest and lake disappeared, replaced by a vast underwater world. She was standing, no floating, in a luminous aquatic realm. The water didn't suffocate her. Instead, it felt warm and alive.
The figures she had seen beneath the lake surrounded her now, their sorrowful faces watching silently. One of them stepped forward, a woman with flowing hair like seaweed and glowing eyes. "You have answered our call," she said. "We are the forgotten souls trapped by the lake. Long ago, we sought its secrets as you did, and now we cannot leave. But you may yet escape." "How?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. "Return the pearl to the heart of the lake," the woman said. "But beware. If you fail, you will remain here with us, a shadow beneath the water." Elena gripped the pearl tightly, its light pulsating in sync with her heartbeat. She looked around and saw the heart of the lake, a glowing vortex far below, swirling with light and shadow. With no time to waste, she swam toward it, the weight of countless eyes watching her every move. The journey was perilous. Shadows clawed at her, whispering doubts and fears, but she pushed forward. As she reached the vortex, she held the pearl high, its light cutting through the darkness. With all her strength, she threw it into the swirling void. The moment the pearl vanished, a blinding light engulfed her. The water around her roared, and the voices cried out, not in anguish, but in relief. When the light faded, Elena found herself back on the shore of the lake. The water was calm, and the whispers were gone. As she looked into the now clear water, she saw her reflection, and behind her, the smiling faces of those she had freed. Elena left Whispering Pines the next day, her sketchbook filled with images she couldn't explain. She never returned to the lake, but the villagers swore that from that day on, Silent Mirror was just a lake, still, quiet, and free of whispers.
The end. Subscribe for more stories.